Hey friend, and welcome to another episode of True Consequences. Today we're picking up with part 2 of the Father Reynaldo mystery. We're talking about his murder and what happened on the day that he was killed. I want to give a shout out to Jackie Moranti for her research and writing on this case. Oh, and don't forget to catch me at CrimeCon UK. Go to crimecon.co.uk and put in code consequence to save 10% on your registration for CrimeCon UK. I can't wait to see all my UK listeners in London. Okay, let's get into it. Franciscan friars entered what is now New Mexico when they accompanied Spanish colonists in 1598. The city of Santa Fe was founded in 1610. The original adobe church was built on the same site where the cathedral now stands. It was a small church, and as the community grew, the church did too. The original structure was replaced by a larger one in 1630. This church was destroyed during the Pueblo Revolt in 1680. The Spaniards had been run off during the revolt, but they returned in 1693. The church wasn't rebuilt until 1714. The new church was named in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of Santa Fe. The only part of the original structure that remains is a small adobe chapel dedicated to Our Lady La Conquistadora. The statue was brought from Spain in 1625 and is the oldest representation of the Virgin Mary in the U.S. Father Jean-Baptiste Lamy arrived from France in 1850. He was to serve as the first bishop of the church. He was displeased with the old adobe church. He claimed that it was an inadequate seat for the archdiocese. So he ordered a new Romanesque church to be built. He brought French architects and Italian stonemasons to build his cathedral. Construction on the cathedral began in 1869 and was finished in 1887. The new cathedral was built around the old adobe church, and when the structure was completed, the old church was demolished and the pieces were taken out of the front door for disposal. The cathedral was dedicated in 1887, but the spires were never completed because there just wasn't enough money to do it. In 1967, the structure was strengthened, new sacrosangs were added, and a Blessed Sacrament chapel was built. The cathedral was elevated to a basilica by Pope Benedict XVI in 2005. This gave St. Francis a place of importance in Rome. The St. Francis Cathedral was elevated to a basilica because the church was important to the community. The basilica has helped community members through outreach. They help feed the less fortunate, they offer support to families experiencing violence, and they minister to the sick. The stained glass windows in the lower bay came from France. They depict the 12 apostles. 7 archbishops, including Lamy, are buried in the sanctuary. The church is beautiful, rich in history. It looms over the plaza but doesn't seem imposing or threatening. It seems to welcome all visitors. Churches are often thought of as safe havens, sanctuaries, places where the outside world can't encroach. Movies depict churches in this way. Anyone seeking sanctuary can go to the church and clergy will ensure their safety. Priests are often seen as off-limits to criminals and the violence that happens all around us on a daily basis. There are rules. The clergy should be respected and left alone. Even when they leave the church, they should be safe. July and August can be extremely hot in New Mexico. But on August 5th, 1982, the weather was pretty mild. The high was about 85 degrees Fahrenheit and the low was around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It was a perfect summer day in Santa Fe. A perfect Thursday. Father Reynaldo and his brothers in the church were at Mass where the service was just ending when a call came into the rectory. Father Gerard Geier answered the call. It was around 8 o'clock. The caller was a man who Geier estimated to be in his 30s. He told Father Geier that he needed a priest. His voice was calm and deliberate and convincing. Neither Father Geier nor Father Reynaldo had any reason to think that these calls were nefarious in any way.
My grandfather's had a heart attack, and I need a priest to come give last rites. I'm at a rest stop going towards Albuquerque. I need someone to meet me here.
Father Geier asked him where his grandfather's home was.
He lives off the highway towards Waldo. I need a priest to meet me here so I can take him to his house.
Father Geier explained that he couldn't come. He had bad eyesight and could no longer drive at night. He told the caller that the other priests were in the church, but that Mass would end shortly. He asked the caller for a number where one of them could call back.
I'm at a payphone at the rest stop. This phone doesn't have a phone number.
Then the caller said something very odd.
In case you want my name, it's Michael Carmelo.
Father Geier asked Michael if he was looking for a specific priest to come perform last rites.
No, any priest can come.
Father Geier also suggested that Michael look in the phone book for another church that may have a priest available immediately. Father Geier told the man that he couldn't see to read, or he would help him find another church to call. Geier finally told Michael that he could try to call back in about 15 or 20 minutes and another priest might be able to help him. Michael did call back about 20 minutes later and Father Rivera answered the phone.
I need a priest to administer last rites to my grandfather. He's had a heart attack.
Father Rivera asked why he hadn't taken his grandfather to the hospital.
He refuses to go. He wants to die at home. I'm at a rest stop near La Bajada Hill. My grandfather lives near the highway, but it's easier for me to take you there.
Father Rivera asked what his grandfather's name was.
His name is Antonio Carmelo.
Father Rivera asked how he could identify Michael when he got to the rest stop.
I have a blue pickup there.
Father Rivera told Michael that he would be driving his cream-colored Chevy Malibu. After the conversation ended, Father Reynaldo told Father Geier about the phone call. He said that he was meeting Michael Carmelo at the La Bajada rest area and that Michael would be driving a blue pickup. Then Father Rivera prepared to leave. He gathered his last rites kit and vestment at about 8:45 p.m. He got in his car and headed to the rest stop. The following morning, August 6th at 8 a.m., Father Rivera was reported missing by one of his brothers in faith, Father Paul Jewett. Father Jewett told the police that Father Rivera had left the church at approximately 8:45 p.m. the night before. He was responding to a call from a family of a heart attack victim and that Father Rivera was to perform last rites. Father Jewett told police that Father Rivera had failed to return. Father Jewett stressed that Father Rivera had no history of disappearing or not showing up where and when he was supposed to. He was punctual and dedicated to his position. The police responded immediately. An all-points bulletin was sent out with a description of Father Rivera and his 1976 Chevy Malibu. Officer Eric Lucero conducted 2 interviews with Father Geier to determine the location that Father Rivera was supposed to meet the person who needed a priest so desperately. By 9 a.m., a ground and aerial search was conducted around Madrid, Cerrillos, and Waldo. At this time, they were only looking for the vehicle. They weren't looking for Father Rivera, so the search was limited to highways and populated roadways. The search continued the following morning beginning at 10 a.m. Officer Eric Lucero and pilot Paul Aycock used a New Mexico State Police helicopter to perform an aerial search around the Cochiti area. They were en route to Waldo when Sergeant George Ulibarri radioed Officer Lucero. Sergeant Ulibarri told Lucero that Lucero needed to get to the rest area at Waldo as soon as possible. Lucero was to contact Josie Gonzalez in reference to someone finding a deceased person in the area. Officer Lucero was met at the La Bajada rest stop by a man named Luis Perea. Mr. Perea told Officer Lucero that he had been en route from Albuquerque to Santa Fe and decided to stop on the Waldo Road. Perea drove this road often since he had to travel between Albuquerque and Santa Fe for work. He liked to stop off on the Waldo Road and take a break and stretch his legs before getting to Santa Fe. The road is scenic. It gives a desert vibe with scrub brush, yucca weed, mesquite, sage, and other local fauna. Cattle graze on open rangeland and a small stream runs through it. Even today, it's a nice place to stop and enjoy the peacefulness and the quiet. Perea decided to take a short walk around just as he had on so many other occasions, but as he was walking, he saw the body of a man lying in a pasture. He could tell from the blood that had pooled around the man that he was deceased. Perea didn't recognize the man, but he was dressed in all black and lying on his back with his arms to his sides. Lewis then ran back to his car and drove to the rest stop to call police and tell them what he had seen. He led Officer Lucero back to where he found the body. It was in a cow pasture between 2 dirt roads just off the main Waldo Road. The body of Father Reynaldo Rivera had been found. Father Reynaldo was lying on his back, dressed in the black shirt and black pants that were common among priests. His white collar was in the left breast pocket of his shirt. One of his pants pockets had been turned inside out. A small coin purse was beside his body. There were welts and bruises on his face where he had been hit. His arms and hands had scratches and abrasions on them, signs that he had been bound before he was killed. A wire coat hanger was lying near him. It was thought that the coat hanger was used to restrain him. He had been shot in the chest with a high-powered rifle. The shell casing had been left behind by his killer. The gunshot wound would later be determined as his cause of death. The aerial search the day before was conducted just south of where he was found in an area that was more visible from the main road. Remember, they were looking for the car. They had assumed that Father Rivera would still have his vehicle. The car was not with him, though. It would be found later that day in a rest area 25 miles south of Grants, New Mexico. The car had been completely run out of fuel and abandoned. The killer had taken anything that could be seen as valuable, including Father Reynaldo's last rites kit. Other things missing from the car were a pair of glasses, his wallet, a pack of cigarettes, and a lighter. These seemed like things that wouldn't be worth anything to anyone but Father Reynaldo, the most puzzling of them being the last rites kit. Father Geier would later speculate that someone wanted to take his car and anything that he had that was of value. He thought that this was a robbery. The investigation had turned from a missing person to a murder, and the city of Santa Fe was forever changed, as was the cathedral. Father Reynaldo was an integral part of the church, the Franciscans, and ultimately the ripples of his passing would be felt throughout the entire state. Archbishop Sanchez was called to the crime scene and immediately broke into tears. He couldn't control his grief. He and Father Reynaldo were very close. They had known one another and served in the church together for many years. Father Reynaldo was buried on August 10, 1982. High Mass was held at the cathedral. Archbishop Roberto Sanchez performed the benediction. 6 of his brothers in faith were honored as pallbearers. Governor Bruce King and his wife Alice were in attendance, as were thousands of the faithful of New Mexico. Inside the cathedral, it was standing room only. Not one more person could fit inside the church. His family, though grieving the loss of the man who was their brother, uncle, friend, family rock, and spiritual guide, was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support and love that the community displayed for their beloved Father Reynaldo. There was a foot procession of thousands of people following the hearse that made its way slowly from the cathedral to Rosario Cemetery, where Father Reynaldo was laid to rest. Many more lined the streets to watch the procession go by. It was estimated that there were 3,000 people who attended the procession through Santa Fe to offer their support to the Franciscans and Father Reynaldo. Father Reynaldo was laid to rest in Rosario Cemetery, surrounded by those he loved and all that loved him. Sometime during the following year, a small white cross appeared at the spot where his body was found. The cross remained there for several years until one day it was gone. Brother Bruce Mihalik told reporters in an interview in 2002 that he still says a prayer for Father Reynaldo when he passes the La Bajada rest stop. 40 years after his death, Father Reynaldo is still remembered. Brother Mihalik also remembers why Father Reynaldo died. He died because he went to minister to someone in his community. He died doing his duty as a priest. Brother Mihalik would later tell KOAT News, quote, "Other churches may have turned the man away. They may have said it's too late, you have to wait until tomorrow, but Father Reynaldo couldn't do that. He went to perform last rites because it was his duty to do so." End quote. In December of 1982, a 3-foot sculpture entitled The Franciscan was placed on a memorial fountain on the grounds of La Villa Rivera. La Villa Rivera was formerly called St. Vincent Hospital, but was dedicated to Father Rivera by Governor Bruce King. Father Rivera had taken a special interest in the retirement home before his death and had spent many days ministering to the people who lived in the home. A plaque dedicated to Father Rivera was erected in 1986. The plaque can be found on Paseo del Peralta Street near Otero Street in Hillside Park. It reads, quote, "While responding to a request to give last rites to a dying man, Franciscan Father Reynaldo Rivera, rector at the St. Francis Cathedral, was kidnapped and brutally murdered, sending Santa Fe and the entire state into shock. Ironically, Father Rivera was laid to rest August 10th, the same date that the 21 Franciscan priests and friars lost their lives in the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. In 2015, a new wing at the cathedral was dedicated to Father Reynaldo and his work. He has not been forgotten all these years later. His family remembers, his congregation remembers, his brothers in faith remember, and homicide detectives have not forgotten either.
What a violent, hideous crime to ask a priest to come to do his ministry, and then in that moment to take him and kill him. Evil thing, an evil thing.
That was the voice of Archbishop Michael Sheehan in an interview with KRQE News in 2016. Father Reynaldo's murder remains unsolved 40 years later. His case remains in the forefront of cold case investigators' minds, though. They believe it can be solved. Next time, we'll delve into an investigation that hasn't stopped since Father Reynaldo went missing. Thanks for listening, and stay safe, New Mexico.